cigarettes, tipsy walking on the rim of shot glasses, haphazard and reckless, eyes wide open, searching for places I'm hoping God will never find me until I see my Father, knees buckled at the pews, hands knuckled at the brow, eyes clenched tight as if redemption revealed itself on the inside of our eyelids, and we are trying to squeeze it out through our tear ducts so the world could see God's glory inside us. My Father will never show us tears. But I know, watching how his temples move in prayer, he sometimes curses God for the callous palms, for the tired fingers, cursing how he can weave them so tight with faith, while God just watches his wife, his children, and his ambitions subdue them. My Father, who will feed you with one hand while spanking you into oblivion with the other, who lectures why an A- wasn't good enough, bring home a bean, he'll ransack your room searching for drugs, who will brag to his friends about us, who will worry about my living life with such reckless abandon. My Father, who after every cigarette break always asks if I could stay even for just a little while, and I find myself always saying no because I got things to do and places to go, and I watch him disappearing faster from my rear view, distance growing like the skid marks I blaze behind me. You are right, Pop, life is supersonic, so grab my arm and slow me down like you always have. Remind me not to run too fast, teach me to look both ways before crossing the street, because the world is out there blazing by at high speed and I get lost way too often, and some days I forget to come home. But you should know, these days I'm only reckless on a microphone. I'm looking both ways before making a decision. I'm holding tight before it all unravels with a simple misstep. So please, light up another cigarette. Let the smoke linger a little bit longer. Let it rise to the heavens, and I will ride it like God, blowing breath on my feet. And when I arrive and they ask me if I've come to terms with my faith enough to come inside, I'll tell them the one thing I know to be true. I tell them I came to terms with God the moment I saw God living in you. Man, seriously, you guys make my day better. Like, this has been an awesome day. Just, the energy in here. Man, 2 weeks ago we had a show and they put us in front of vending machines and in the cafeteria, and people kept coming behind me ordering stuff. I'm like, this is not like, everybody thinks you could be rock stars. I'm like, nope. So here's my ask you, speaking of family, raise your hand if you have at least one other sibling, and keep it up. Keep it up if you have at least 2 or more, 3 or more, 4 or more, 5, 6, this where it gets fun, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're the last one, so how many brothers and sisters you got? So there's 10 of y'all? That's like a Philippine village. Dang, it's a lot of people. Telling all, right? But it's still family, right? It's considered sibling. Man, it's crazy. Well, there's 4 of us. There's me, and then my sister Kate, my brother George, and my sister Carla. Let me just give you all a quick background of what me and Jolan do. Me and Jolan have been touring since 2009. Whenever we are on tour, whenever you guys are in school, we're touring. Whenever you're on break, we're on break. So we love when you guys are on break, right? Because that means I don't get to do anything but sit at home all day and scratch myself. Pretty much. That's all I do. Now, mind you, my wife works every day from 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. So she leaves me home alone with my dog. If you ever go to Instagram and follow me on Instagram and you wonder why there's so many pictures of my dog, that's because I'm bored. Like, I have nobody to talk to. So by the time my wife comes home, I have all this pent-up energy, right? Like, as soon as she comes home, I'm poking at her, like, oh, let's go to the movies, let's go to a club, let's go get a drink, let's go have late dinner. And she's looking at me like, you know what? I liked it better when you were on the road. Like, it was so much more peaceful when you're away, right? So last summer, 2012, my wife looked at me in the middle of July. I have been not doing anything for the last 6 days, and she was starting to get really irritated. She goes, you should go on vacation. And I'm like, where am I going to go by myself? She's like, well, why don't you fly back to California, go visit your mom and brothers and sisters. You haven't seen them in a while. And I'm like, you know what? That's a good idea. So I flew back July of 2012, and I spent 3 weeks in California. And this is basically my everyday over there. My sister would go to work in the morning at 6 o'clock, but she gets off by 2. When she gets off, she comes to my mom's house. She hangs out there till 7 o'clock when her man gets off, and then they go back to their house together. But between that time, from 2 to 7, me and my sister would sit on the couch with our laptops open and watch television and not say a single word to her. right? Like, you ever been that tight with somebody that you don't even need to talk? Like, sometimes you just love being around them so much that it didn't matter if you have nothing to talk about. You just love being around them. That's how me and my brother and sisters are. Like, we are so close. Now, don't get me wrong. When we're together, we're the biggest goofballs you will ever meet, right? But, we just love just being around each other. Well, on the last day that I was supposed to fly back here to Florida, my sister comes home from work at like 11 o'clock, and I looked at her and I'm like, what are you doing home? You don't get off until later. She's like, well, I've had this headache and it hasn't gone away for like 3 days, and I just couldn't take it anymore, and I had to leave work. Now, mind you, my sister will not call out for work for anything. Like, even when she's sick, like, she is one of the most healthy people. She's one of the most healthiest people I know. Well, maybe except for her liver, because apparently her and Hennessy have a very important relationship, right? You know how in every family there's always that one person whose job it is to get everybody turned up, right? Like, that's my sister's job, right? Now, so for her to come home from work, that's like really like crazy, because she won't do that. So my mom looked over at her, was like, we need to take you to the emergency room. Something might be wrong. And my sister's like, I'm fine. It's just a headache. It'll go away. So I looked at her. I go, you better go, because knowing mom, she's going to bother you all day until you go. So you might as well go. So they went to the ER. I stayed at home and I finished packing. A couple hours later, I get a text message from my sister, and she's like, yeah, so it looks like they found a tumor in my brain. So I'm like, crap. So I called the airline, canceled my flight, went over to the emergency room to check up on her. And when I got there, she's like, oh, good news. It looks like the tumor is not cancerous. Looks like I've had it since I was 14. It's actually on the surface of the brain, in between the two halves. And the doctor says all I got to do is take it out, cut me open, take it out, and I should be, able to go home in a couple days. It's not a big surgery at all. The only downfall is they have to put a metal plate in my head, which I think is okay, because at least I'll get better cell phone signal. Like, that's how me and my brother and sisters are when it comes to this type of stuff, right? So knowing that she was all right, I looked at her. I'm like, yeah, just make sure that the doctors don't cross any wires, in your brain. I don't want you try to raise your right hand and your left leg goes up or whatever, And then my brother even looked at her, like, my brother's like messing around with her IV bottle, like, in the room, and he's like, you want me to like switch this out for Hennessy, Yeah, that's just how we are, and that's how we joke. So I flew back to Florida knowing she was going to be cool on Friday. That Monday she went into surgery. That Tuesday I call in to check up on her, and her fiance picked up and was like, yeah, it looks like she's good. She woke up. She was able to recognize all of us. She even called your brother ugly, so we know her brain's still intact, right? The only thing is she couldn't move some of her body parts, but the doctor says that might just be because of the anesthesia. But the doctor says as soon as anesthesia wears out, she should be okay. Well, that Thursday, I get a frantic phone call from my mom, and she's like, you need to come back right away. Somewhere in the middle of the night, they rushed your sister back to the ICU because a blood vessel hemorrhaged into her brain, and she fell into a coma. So I flew back to California that Friday. By that Monday, the doctors were pronouncing her brain dead, and by that Saturday, I was burying my sister. This all just happened back in last 2012. And, and I tell you this, at the beginning of the night, I asked y'all if you think things happen for a reason. Who would have known that those 3 weeks I spent with her would be the last 3 weeks I would ever have? And I say this to you now because a lot of you are students, and for some of you who are freshmen, anyone who's been to the school long enough will tell you that eventually it's going to start to get really busy. And when it starts to get really busy, you won't have that kind of time with your friends and family like you used to. So when you do get that time, take advantage. Right? Don't ever let time pass without telling somebody that you love them, that you care about them, right? Because this is what life does. Life will throw things at you, but it's the way you respond to the things in life that makes life amazing, right? And I would have known, if I would have known that would have happened to my sister, I would have spent a lot more time with her. And we all say that, when someone dies, we all say that, and it's so sad that we have to say that. So now, don't let that time go by with anyone. So this is the poem that I wrote for my sister. It is without a doubt the most gut-wrenching poem I've ever had to write. I hope you can get something out of it. But at the end of the day, the poem was written because it's not about her death. It's about us not being dead while we're alive, right? And not walking through life like we're already dead. We have to continue on. And no matter what hurts you, no matter what's hurting you right now, if you had a bad week, bad month, bad day, whatever's hurting you, see it through. Because I promise you'll become a better person at the end. So this is the poem, and here you go. Oh, use this mic? You want to use this one? Yeah, I know. Can you check this one? Just so I don't get cut off. And check. Not working? Check. All right, let's just go with this. It's fine. It's not working, so. When the snow falls in the winter, the woolly caterpillar crawls into a crevice and freezes to death. Its blood stops flowing, its lungs hardens into ice, its heart comes slowly to a halt. The heart is always the last to go. But when the snow melts in the spring, the ice thaws from its ventricles, the crystals dissolves from its lungs, and just as slowly as it died, the woolly caterpillar awakens and comes back to life. For 120 hours, we waited for my sister to wake up, my family mumbling prayers around the doctor who tells us she fell into a coma when a blood vessel hemorrhaged, and my father hasn't stopped praying since. My stepfather searching the eyes of doctors for the answers to those prayers, my siblings pushing me into the room as though I could... That scared me. I was gonna duck down. What was that? Can we start this over? Yeah. All right. Okay. All right, let's do this again. Okay. No one touch anything. Yeah, let's do it again. When the snow falls in the winter, the woolly caterpillar crawls into a crevice and freezes to death. Its blood stops flowing, its lungs hardens into ice, its heart comes slowly to a halt. The heart is always the last to go. But when the snow melts in the spring, the ice thaws from its ventricles, the crystals dissolves from its lungs, and just as slowly as it died, the woolly caterpillar awakens and comes back to life. For 120 hours, we waited for my sister to wake up, my family mumbling prayers around the doctor who tells us she fell into a coma when a blood vessel hemorrhaged, and my father hasn't stopped praying since. My stepfather searching the eyes of doctors for the answers to those prayers, my siblings pushing me into the room as though I could perform a miracle, my mother making twin towers of my arms the way she crashes into them now, while I attempted to believe that my faith far exceeds science and God would awaken her somehow. Awaken, sweet sister. Tell me that my tears the size of mustard seeds will fall upon your cheek and move the mountain of swelling in your brain. Tell me that the same God who makes all things possible can still live up to his name, because right now that name belongs to your mother, who's cursing God for being too coward to make up his own mind as she stares at the medical forms granting the hospital permission to let you die. If he wants her, then take her, she says. Who am I to decide? And by her side is your fiancé, whose fists are stones he's ready to throw if the doctor mentions organ donation just one more time. But your father, he sits still praying at your bedside, wrapping rosaries around your hands and tucking prayer cards behind your neck. God will resurrect my daughter, he says. Please, God, tell me she'll resurrect. How do I respond? How do I agree when the tubes of your IV intertwines around my throat, strangles my voice every time I plead? Awaken, sweet sister. Make this poem easier to write. Tonight, pull out the respirator in your throat and speak the words that will end this poem brighter than how it begun. Remove the tubes and we'll blow kisses into your veins, that you may know where the true source of your life comes from, how it comes from your heart, how in this hurricane world you broke into tiny pieces, dropped them like care packages on our laps. You always had enough of it to give, which is why there are 200 people in the waiting room now, ready to give it back in case you need it to live. But on the 7th day, the doctor gave us the results of the last test my sister will ever take, and I swear I'm not built for earthquakes like that. My knees buckling like a bridge, my arms shaking too much to catch another one of my mother's crash landings. None of us was left standing. We were all falling through the cracks, falling until we hit the floor of her room that night. This is what rock bottom must look like. The nurse disconnecting her machines, our hands stretching to touch a part of her as we wailed, our tears dropping as fast as her heartbeat, our sanity vanishing with her breath. Faster it faded, my stepfather stroking her face. Faster it faded, my father presses her hand to his cheek. Faster it faded, we're still waiting on a miracle. Faster it faded, my face planted to my mother's belly. Mommy, this hurts. Faster it faded, and then it was finished. The monitors dropped to 0, And as her breath emptied and her heartbeat slowed, her fiancé removes the ring from her finger, ties it to his necklace, and says how fitting. It was her heart that was the last to go. It was silent after that. Silent as my mother reaches over to close her daughter's eyes. My stepfather releases a long-awaited sigh. My sibling straightens the creases in her blanket while my father unravels the rosary from her hands, takes the prayer cards from behind her neck and sips them into his pocket, places a kiss on her forehead, her chest, and both her shoulders. Put in a good word to God for us, he says. And that's when I knew that all along we had failed to see the light at the end of this tunnel she was going through. Because while we were praying for her awakening, the awakening was really meant for us, to remind us that life is a coma we can still choose to wake up from. That faith means not having to wait for the sun to come, because sometimes the sun doesn't come, but we can still rise on our own. Her last breath has already blown life into the candles of our bones, with nothing more but a wish that we may live more fully. The woolly caterpillar freezes to death in the winter and comes back to life in the spring. For 14 years, goes through the same cycle of awakening, waiting until the final year when its work is complete, then spins itself into a cocoon to be reborn a moth and fly away for good. So sleep now, sweet sister. You surrendered your life for too many winters. We'll take it from here. Sleep now wherever you wake. May you be reborn with wings on your back. Fly into the sun, knowing when our own winter ends, spring will come and we'll see each other again. But until then, yeah, put in a good word to God for us. Thanks, guys. Yeah. I bet when you guys walked in here, you were like, I didn't know I was going to be laughing 1 minute and then crying the next. You know, such is life, right? You know, 1 minute you're up, next minute you're down. That's just the way life is. It's a roller coaster of emotions. If you ever think back in your whole life, you could probably attest that you have not had one moment of peace ever, right? Like, think about the moment you think you have peace, something else happens and you got to take care of, right? It's always like that. See, here's what happens though. A lot of times people go through something like that, and then they're like, "Oh my God, my life sucks," and then they stay that way. You know, you just have to admit to yourself that things will always come in your life that you will need tending, right? There's always going to be challenges, but it's how you respond to those things that makes your life amazing. Because think about it, if we were just basic animals, all we did every day was wake up, crap, poo, eat, and that's all we did, life would kind of suck, right? But life, what makes life is amazing is the people that we have, the experiences we have, you know, the love that we have for different things, our hobbies, all those things is what makes life amazing, right? Check, check, check. Okay, that's good. You can, there you go. I like this better. All right. If you can look at your life that way, right, then it makes it a lot easier to handle. You know, I mean, if you look at me, I've had a lot of blessings, but I've also had a lot of heartache, you know, one being my sister. Back in January 2006, I was working in corporate America for 6 years, and I hated my job, right? And I wanted to get out of it, but it felt like that was what life was grooming me to be. Like, because ever since I was a kid, there was always pressure, especially if you grew up in a Filipino household. That's how parents were, right? I mean, even in kindergarten, my dad looked at me like, you better color better than everybody else. Like, that was, you know, pressure, right? And then I get into elementary school, and my dad's like, you know, you better write cursive neater than everyone else. Then I get into junior high, my dad's like, you better get A's in all your classes. Then I get into high school, and my dad's like, you better get high SAT scores. And then I get into college, and my dad is like, you better do well here to get a good job. Then I get a good job, and now here I was. I would wake up every day at 7, be at work by 9, get off at 6, come home, eat, go to sleep, wake up, do it all over again. You ever felt like your life was stuck? Like it's in this repetitive cycle, and all you want is to break free, but you're afraid that if you try to break free from that, it's gonna destroy everything that you've built, right? And so you're afraid to. But what happens there is years go by, and you look back and you're like, man, I hate my life, I hate my job, and there I was cursing at God. I'm like, you know, I thought my life was supposed to be golden. I mean, that's what India Ari told me, and suddenly here I am, and everything sucks, right? Well, in January 2006, I got my answer, because in January 2006, I was diagnosed with cancer. Right? And remember, if you ever ask anybody who's going through cancer, if you ask them, like, are you afraid to die? Most times they'll tell you no. What they're afraid of is, have they ever really lived? And all I could do is look back at my whole life wondering what I've done. And I just remember the night before my surgery, I looked up to God. I'm like, all right, I haven't talked to you in like 5 years, but if you're still up there, do me a favor and get me out of this mess. And I promise I will not waste one more moment of my life. Just give me one more chance, and I promise I'll live right by you. Or the next day I went to my surgery. A couple weeks later, the wounds healed. As soon as the wounds healed, I walked into the office. I'm like, listen, I have no idea where I'm going to get my next paycheck from, but if I don't get the hell out of here now, I'm never going to get the hell out of here, so I got to go, right? And within that summer, that's when HBO called. That's when BET called. That's when I started getting college gigs. Now, January 2014, I'm going to be celebrating being cancer-free for 8 years, and I've been doing this full-time for 8 years. Yeah. And, you know, and what makes it amazing is my wife is currently, you know, and we didn't think we could have kids because of my cancer. And, you know, but now we're pregnant and she's also due in January. So it's an amazing, you know what I mean? Like, that's life. You know, my sister passed away and now we have a life coming in. You know, this is just what life is. And I tell you this because on your way to greatness, there's always going to be people that's going to try to stop you. Either people who love too much or hate too much. The haters, don't worry about them. They're just mad because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. People who love too much, like my mom would look at me, like, you know, you should be a nurse. And I'm like, I faint at the sight of blood and you want me to be a nurse. And she goes, yeah, but it's stable and you make good money. And I'm like, look, if you follow money and stability, I can almost guarantee you it almost always leads nowhere. But if you follow your passion first, I can guarantee you that success will follow you. But what is success? It's not about being rich or famous. It's about waking up every day loving what you do. This is what we get to do every day, and we hope for that same happiness for you. So these are our last two poems. This is a poem I wrote the night before my surgery, and here you go. Never a proper response when you're sitting at the doctor's office as he proceeds to tell you those are cancer cells they found in your body. My doctor doesn't wait for one, but rather he takes my distant stare into the sterile white walls as his cue to tell me to stay positive. After all, research showed that if treated early, testicular cancer has a 95% survival rate, and just then I was tempted to say, 95% means nothing if destiny doesn't intend me to be a part of that statistic. But I bite my tongue, kept my eyes fixated across the room, waiting until he was done, explaining the process of what's meant to happen next. He says step 1 involves cutting a 4-inch incision beneath my belly, then with a probe, guide the entire right testicle up through the pelvic region, extract it through the incision. Now imagine there I am, pumped with anesthesia, counting down slowly from 10, each second maliciously haunted by the disturbing thought that when I wake, I will never be whole again. Now it's off to step 2. Nauseated and confused, I quickly learned that Percocets and poetry writing just don't mix. When I pop them on the hour every hour, because as every hour ticks, the pain returns, radiates through nerves like tattoos being etched from the inside. So I gotta pop pills until I feel the pain begin to subside. My doctor says all I can do is wait until the incision heals, wait for the pathology report, wait to see if the cancer is caught in time, wait to get back to my life state of mind, standing next to her mirror, positive, but being at home bedridden with boredom makes the mind wander. Imagination running rampant like a purse snatcher, taking off with your high hopes and carrying out the alleys of your fears. And despite our want to try to stay clear of the far, shuffling in the dark, fingers fumbling to hold on to. Myself naked in the bathroom mirror. 4 days and still waiting on test results. 4 days and refusing to see visitors. 4 days. And my wife wakes me from sleep with a kiss on the cheek that suddenly tells me that God is still listening. And he speaks to me through her, tells me that nothing occurs without his touch. And though this episode right now might seem too much, just know that it's happening for a reason. To change me the same way it changes the season, because God doesn't give you dreams to taunt you in. God doesn't give you anything to handle it. God doesn't give you broken, but still beautiful. Thankful to be blessed by the presence of family and friends, a loving girl, a beautiful audience, and a 4-inch scar that I now pass off as a stab wound I got from a knife fight because I'm hardcore like that. And I'm alive, and I survived. Give me the choice to ride or die. I'll spread my arms to the side to take a whole day. sometimes you have to lose a part of you to find your whole self.
FIU, y'all ready for the last poem? Make some noise, make some noise! When I say freedom, you say live. Freedom, freedom. When I say people, you say love. People, people. When I say struggle, you say fight. Struggle, struggle.
All right, what's 1 plus 1? What's the color of grass? What are the 2 letters after A and B? Oh, well, now that y'all bring it up, we do have CDs. They're $10. But I'm going to hook y'all up. I'm going to give y'all a special. The problem is I only have like 30 left, right? Because we've been on tour. So I'm going to give it to y'all for sale. Like, it's going to be $10, but it's 2 for $20. So if you want to take advantage of it, we take both cash and credit cards. And for the women, we have these baby tees. I'm going to call her out. This is my friend Aislinn. She's wearing the shirt. We sell these shirts for the women, right? It says, marvel at your magnificence in the mirror, spin then do it again. But it's written backwards. That way when you look in the mirror, you're the only one that could read it. Because at the end of the day, that's all that you need. Thank you. Look at her, she's like, she got all into it. Thank you. But if you don't buy anything from us, and that's 20. If you don't buy anything from us, that's cool. We have a website, theasiaproject.com. When you go there, make sure it's the Asia Project, not the Asian Project. That sounds kind of weird. Theasiaproject.com. If you go on there, it'll lead you to our online site. We have CDs, swag bags, shirts. We also have, if you're on there, make sure to visit us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all the Asia Project. That's all you got to look for. But please follow us. There's a lot of y'all. So I expect my, my likes and stuff to go up by about 100 people, all right? Every one of y'all, I swear. I know y'all are on social networks. And in a couple of months, we are releasing our new album called Touch. We're going to be putting it up on Kickstarter. It's going to be awesome because we're going to help, you guys can help us fund it and be a part of the project. It's going to be an amazing CD. But this is the last poem. I dedicate this to all of you who've ever looked at yourself in a mirror and know exactly what the hell is wrong with you, right? We all do that. We look at ourselves like, I'm too skinny, I'm too fat, I'm too this, I'm too that. Like, we are literally our own worst critics, right? Somebody once said to me, nothing anyone can say or do to me is worse than what I've said and done to myself. Right? Which is true. Like, look at me. I'm skinny. I've been skinny my whole life. I could never get girls. Every time I try to get girls, I write her a poem, but somewhere along the way, some dude, bigger muscles, always comes along and is like, hey, how you doing? She's like, oh my God, you're so cute. And like, they walk away together, and I'm like, I wrote you a poem. You know what I'm saying? But when girls look at me, they don't look at me like that. They look at me like, well, I mean, I wouldn't date him, but he is Asian, so I will stay his friend just in case I need to copy my math homework. Like, which really sucks because I sucked at math, right? So I'm like, all right, well then if I'm going down, I'm taking all you mofos down with me. Go ahead, do what you do. So imagine me being skinny and then going up and then going to testicular cancer. Now I'm looking at God like, all right, you made me skinny my whole life. Now you're going to take away a nut. Like, really? Like, what did I do to you? Why are you taking away everything to make a man sexy, right? But I realized I had to go through that in order to come out on the other side with a purpose. Because if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have a story to tell y'all today. So I hope when you look at yourself in the mirror, you'll know that nobody could ever be better at being you than you. That's what diversity is about, right? That, no matter who you are, because the moment you stop caring about what other people think, then the moment you'll discover what freedom really means, right? So this is the last poem. I hope you laugh along. It's about my insecurities. I'm sure it's about yours. And, but before we do, can y'all just give yourselves just one more big round of applause just for hanging out and being there? Oh, you guys are amazing. All right. So as if by some divine act of grace, late in the midst of my prayer, God revealed his face with an offer to recreate me according to my own design. So I said, fine. I said, I want biceps and pecs. I want to wear tight shirts that make me look like I'm smuggling ice packs in my chest. No more lanky legs or bony wrists. I want God to make me rip. Gluteus maximus, my hips. I want butt cheeks bulging out of my pants. Butt cheeks that can clench the back of my jeans and pull them down without using my hands. I want chiseled calves and thunderous thighs. I want women to upgrade their medical insurance because I can't help but snap their necks every time I walk by. Forget the poetry hustle. I'd rather have muscle, a baritone voice and facial stubble, and I want a bigger penis. But not just a bigger than average penis. Y'all know, like the one I have now? Nah. I want one the size of a forearm with a clenched fist. The kind I have to wrap around my waist every time I piss. I'll make my living as a stripper. Stage name Mr. Bangkok. Master in the art of soy sauce body shots, and I'll get laid. Not to mention get paid. Because my stack of unpaid bills got me lighting candles at night. Yesterday, for real, the electric company came to my house, shut my drapes, and told me I can't even have daylight. So if God wants to offer me change, I want to be butt naked on MTV Cribs in a diamond-studded tub taking a bubble bath and champagne. God obviously did not share my enthusiasm. So I said, in that case, make me immune. Invincible from a cancer that came too soon. If not that, make me fearless. Unafraid of the monthly blood test that could take me back to where I started. If not that, make me heartless. Because compassion has only led me to the pain of remembrance for those I've ever loved and lost. We are the bearers of the cross, forced to come face to face with our faults. Weary from the weight we strap to our backs, we search for a quick fix to relieve ourselves from the ugliness that consumes us. We feel abandoned, we feel forgotten, as if we're swimming against the current of those who seem to have it all figured out. But still with hopeful voice we shout, praying to be redeemed, if only for a while. They say when life gives us 100 reasons to frown, we give life 1,000 reasons to smile. And I swear I'm counting my blessings. How do you count your blessings with fingers so we seem to fall short of expectations? We are the seekers of salvation. We are the callous knuckles pounding on heaven's door, like a tree growing on the forest floor, stretching its limbs upwards just for a piece of the sun. We are the bent knees on bedroom floors, stretching our arms to the ceiling, hoping our prayers are heard amongst the prayers of millions. And then God spoke, said I was missing the purpose, because somewhere between the thresholds of our homes and the thresholds of churches, there will be days when prayers seem to hang lifeless at the edge of our tongues. There will be days when the ugliness reveals itself in the shadow that is on the blades of our shoulders. But beauty is hiding in the older and the holy beholder is him. This ain't about picking at the scabs of your sins. This ain't about God finding you amongst a sea of faces. This is about you finding God in the most quiet of places. This is about dancing in the streets. This is about the taste of the candy bar your mother said would ruin your meal. This is about finding ways to heal. This is about having lemons and making some rubber. This is about FIU, thank you guys for having us. God bless y'all. Good night.
All right. Let's thank Asia one more time. Awesome job. Anyway, this has been an awesome day. We are privileged that you all have joined us. We are going to continue and just at 2 o'clock, if you go through these double doors, with Doc Henley, who's the author of Wine to Water. So that's going to be another outstanding program. Please complete your evaluations that are on your table and turn them in to someone on the committee. We are also looking for a few students that would like to be interviewed for a video we're doing on your reaction to Asia. So if you'll see Robert, the guy with the camera over here, we'd love to get some feedback from you all. So thank you for coming, and we'll see you in a few minutes.